What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Oil and Gas Startups Podcast. This podcast has been a long time in the making, almost 3 years now. Got my boy Kyle from Iconic Air down from West Virginia. You still live in West Virginia?
Still live in West Virginia.
Still live in West Virginia. So we
Yeah,
first talked.
You're the only person who lives in West Virginia.
Maybe
That's
the
true.
first person on the show that's from West Virginia.
We'll
At
wave
least
that
live
flag,
there.
man. We'll wave it proudly.
So we first talked beginning of 2020, right around the time of COVID, and you were getting started out, and I'd seen you putting out some content on LinkedIn and reached out, and I think you've probably come a long ways since then. Probably really in ideation phase and trying to find product market fit, get the company started. So first, tell us what is Iconic Air, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me. This is incredible. Watch you guys. I'm not going to say every podcast, but I've definitely seen a few. So you have a fan here.
You're in the hot seat now.
You have a fan here. Yeah. So real high level, Iconic Air today is an enterprise SaaS platform helping energy intensive industries measure, manage, and communicate their carbon footprint. You know,
Cool.
that's a big, broad, swathy statement.
Yeah.
But think of it this way. Think of it as we help people calculate their scope 1 and scope 2 numbers to report out to investors, EPA,
Yeah.
markets, etc.
No scope 3, just scope 1 and scope 2.
Not today, but
Yeah.
if you want to go there, we can.
We can go there because I think scope 3 is a fucking scam. So I want to hear your take on
Actually,
it.
I'm going to have no comments on that right now.
So to help us conceptualize this, because we talked to so many different companies who are focused on this space, how do you guys do that? Is it plugging into sensors? Is it plugging into public data? Is it using some sort of algorithms to, quantify the operational nuances of the business and then how that translates to carbon? Like, walk us through that real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. So simply put, we work with the operator to get most of their operations data into our system. That could be through APIs, FTP integrations, or even just using Excel spreadsheets.
Mm-hmm.
And everything is us hand-holding with the operator and going through that process with them. So our team is made up of, technologists, but also people who have been in oil and gas for decades, people who come from BP, Chevron, and many of the other operators.
Yeah.
So the simple version of carbon accounting is a lot of it's leveraging the EPA protocols or other protocols. So there is no, IP driven information there.
Mhm.
All of the IP and the interesting stuff comes from, what algorithms can you bake in to help on the operations side,
Yeah.
flagging and QA/QC processes.
Yeah. So that's what the IP is taking this information and then actually creating action on that information.
That's exactly right. But I would even consider that quote unquote advanced for where the industry is today.
Yeah.
95% of the industry right now is going from quantifying and doing greenhouse gas inventories once a year for EPA standards to doing it 4 times a year, 12 times a year. Some people, if you're even more advanced, doing it near real time.
Yeah.
And
What percentage do you think is kind of like on either end of the spectrum, right? From the one time a year to the guys who are doing it real time?
Yeah, it'd be tough to put that into percentages, but I would say, the vast majority of people who we work with and communicate with, which is everyone from your small operator to the 95th percentile, I'd say.
Yeah.
A lot of them are still doing it once a year and just now having conversations about going quarterly or more often.
Yeah.
But let's take one step back and just say, why do they need to get it more than once a year? Like who cares? Like, why does that matter? And the simple way to put it is carbon is now tied to capitalism. And what does that mean? It means at a board meeting, the C-suite walks in and they put their agenda up and they're showing their investors. And the world used to be expenditures and revenue.
Mhm.
Now it's expenditure, revenues, and our carbon footprint and our plan over the next 12 months. And it's not just for people who are saying, hey, we want to go net zero. It's not just for publics. It's for everyone because carbon now starts to have a monetary value associated with it.
Yeah. What is your background? We just covered that you're from West Virginia, which is coal country and also heavy natural gas presence with Marcellus Utica. Give us some of your background and how you got to the point of building Iconic Air.
Absolutely. So let's just kick it off with growing up until college. I probably knew anything about oil and gas. You guys often tout how little everyday people look around and recognize oil and gas in their communities, and how they don't even know how energy gets into the pipes and information and stuff that they use into their household. I was one of those people, I would say, even until a few years ago.
Dude, I grew up in Midland, Texas, the biggest oil field in the United States, and I didn't know anything. It's like literally in my backyard.
That's right. That's right. So clearly there's a gap there that you guys are trying to help solve, but there's a gap there. And I was, within that, gap range of not having any clue. Fast forward some time, I was in college, industrial engineer by training. My co-founder, also industrial engineer by training. That's where we had met at West Virginia University. And we started to get a little bit more involved in the startup scene, just like you guys wanted to start your own business. Like our generation grew up in this mentality that, hey, you want to be the next, you want to create the change that you want to see, essentially. Yeah. And so we chopping up different ideas. We entered the West Virginia business plan competition. Very small first steps, right?
I remember this. Y'all won, right? And got a prize from it.
A whopping, I think, $10,000 or $15,000 prize. And to us at the time, that was the world. We were like, whoa. We're like, whoa. But fast forward some time, how we began to dip our toes into oil and gas is we started working on software with some local companies, looking at leak data management stuff. Like we noticed that there was this cool new technology called drones popping up, and people were starting to put sensors on them. This was, pre-COVID, probably 2019-ish. And we were like, whoa, I mean, I feel like we could do that, right? So we took our winnings from the West Virginia business plan competition. We bought an industrial sized Matrice 600 Pro, like DJI drone that can carry like a baby.
Have you tried?
We haven't. We haven't. So that's how we got our start, man. And so we were out there in the Marcellus Basin, like literally trying to talk to anyone who would give us a shot, making our own off-the-shelf sensor systems. Nothing super advanced. Like we were working with electrical engineers and putting stuff together, attaching it to a drone and pitching these people on, hey, we'll fly your pipelines and we'll fly all this stuff. Right. Yeah. And long story short was we weren't very good at the hardware side, and we weren't very good at getting operators to give us a chance on that. Right. But the one operator who gave us a shot, or service provider, they basically said, hey, look, the hardware side doesn't, not as interesting to us right now, but what you guys are doing with the software in terms of visualizing our data, that was like really helpful. So that was the start of us starting to push down. The early Iconic Air DNA, if you will, was in leak data management. Yeah. And as you start to see more of these technologies pop up, that's who we started working with. We started saying, hey, I wonder if we could take, some of that drone data and some of that continuous sensor data and some of this optical gas imaging data. Yeah. And like bring it into a place and make it useful for you.
So that's really interesting because, the last time I talked to you back in 2020, y'all were using drones, and you saw several other companies popping up doing that. But that was like y'all's first step to getting to where y'all are today, because just, hey, we're going to build these drones, this hardware, sensors, we're going to do this. Then you saw a need for a platform to actually connect and bring in all this information.
What year was this again?
2019, 2020, around that time period. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember I remember our conversation still. I remember where I was standing. I was standing in the old podcast studio downtown, walking around, talking to him. And so it's funny, all my memories are getting jogged up now. I was like, oh yeah, I remember y'all won 10 grand. And
this is actually one of my favorite realizations in this industry is, we're all still pretty young and pretty new for the sector of starting your own business. And as we have been in oil and gas now for 2 or 3 years, that showing up to conferences like we had today, there was a methane mitigation summit, showing up to these things and seeing the familiar faces and shaking hands with people and be like, man, we're like still in this thing from 4 years ago. This is wild to me.
That's always a win because I quit my job in 2018, and we really started this podcast started at the beginning or end of 2018. That realization, oh shit, we're still here.
We're still here.
4 or 5 years later, we're still here.
We're still here. And
surprise. That's awesome. So let's talk about, I think I saw a big announcement the other day a partnership with EQT. Is that correct?
Diversified energy.
Diversified, yeah. So Diversified.
I mean, Diversified. Let's give them a little prop. Diversified has more wells than anybody else in the United States, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
believe.
Well, actually, it's funny with Diversified because they got drug out in the media about, I don't know, 8-10 months ago, and about their methane leaks and problems. And I can't remember if it was on Bloomberg or CNBC who wrote the article, but they actually just got a man, I should have came in here more prepared. They got a certificate for their methane mitigation and met some standard like last month. And you don't see anyone in the media writing up articles about how Diversified has taken massive steps to cut their methane leaks. And so I gave them some props over on Twitter. Probably got like 20 likes. So spreading the message for them. But yeah, that's awesome to hear, because Diversified's business model is they actually play a really critical part in the life cycle of assets, because they go and get the marginal wells, the stripper wells that no one really wants anymore. And so they have, I don't even know how many. Do you know how many wells they have under management? I mean, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
If you include all the smaller ones in West Virginia and everything, right? I can't give a number, but it's thousands on thousands.
I think it's over 100,000. I think it's like over 120,000.
It's like a crazy amount. And so really interesting to hear that, they're an old company too. So you have just like this old traditional oil and gas company that's now partnering up with very new age technology. So talk a little bit about what y'all are doing with Diversified to help them out.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, Diversified, one of the most, innovative, open-minded companies I've ever met and spoke with, right? We work primarily with Paul Espinal, who's over top of like a lot of their regulatory EHS, wears a lot of hats in the organization. But we've met, all of their leadership team, and it's been eye-opening to see how ahead of the game they actually are, right? And now they're a public company on the London Stock Exchange. So when you weigh that kind of into it and realize what's going on in the world, then, you start to connect the dots and go, okay, they're getting out there. They're getting out in front of the wave and trying to spearhead things before it's a problem now.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I've never talked to anyone over there, so that's interesting to hear.
Yeah. And, this is just uptelling this just into a little bit larger of a point. This is what's beautiful about this capitalistic framework that we have going on here. When we, we opened up saying, carbon is now part of capitalism. You want to talk about a nation and an industry that's going to move faster than anyone and put the money in more quickly, because it's now tied to the banks and returns and your interest rates, right? Now it's no longer just a splashy story for marketing. It's like, no. Our COOs care about this stuff, right? We go into organizations, talk with COOs, and that's how you know they really care. It's like their day in and day out information trading systems. Like, this is what it's about. Yeah. But back to the Diversified point, it's we work with them on their lead management systems. We work with them on gathering all of their emissions data across their operations. We aggregate all that data together, help perform their Subpart W reports at the end of the year, help them get those OGMP certifications, ensure our software is most up to date with all of the new IRA bill information. Yeah. Most up to date with these MIQ certifications, most up to date with OGMP 2.0 and whatever's to come next. Yeah. So that's what we pride ourselves on. We pride ourselves on not only being able to be a flexible platform, self-service, have them be able to get in there and actually, leverage a system in a way that it saves them time, money, resources, but also we don't do hands-on consulting, but it has all the information you're going to need over the next decade, to get you through what's going on.
Yeah. So I think that's a really interesting point, talking about carbon accounting and how it's actually becoming a real line item in financials. And so when you look at a company like Diversified, I'm really interested in like where the rubber meets the road and how you actually account for those things. And so let's use an operator like Diversified, and, we have Iconic here. So I'm an operator and I'm like, okay, I want to use you guys. Where are we pulling all the information from? Is it all sensors? Are we, flying drones? Are you guys compatible with everything? And then once I have that in the platform, like me as a user, what can I actually do and see within the platform as an oil and gas operator?
Absolutely. So just taking it from, we start meeting with operator X and we say we don't have them on contract yet. Just before getting them on contract, we'll be having meetings. In a weird way, this carbon sustainability topic stretches across every portion of an organization.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have meetings with the operations folks. We need to have meetings with environmental sustainability folks. We need to have meetings with IT. And each one of these people will start to pull into these discussions to better understand what systems they're using, what processes they have, how it works, et cetera, et cetera. And what does sustainability want to see? Okay, sustainability talks with the C-suite and preps charts for every internal board meeting and every external graph and conversation that's happening. Well, where is that information being pulled from? Oh, it's probably going to be pulled from Iconic now. Okay, so now that we have to have discussions to make sure everyone's on the same page. So the first thing we'll do is we'll have meetings with these organizations. We'll say, what systems are you using today on the ground in the field? Are you guys using Promax, Wellview? Are you guys using P2 systems? Are you using Carte? We'll go one by one across where's every piece of data coming from across organization. Not only does that help us, but that helps them. Gets everyone on the same page, gets everyone organized, everyone's heads nodding. They're like, okay. These guys clearly have done this before. They have people who can speak to every nitty gritty nuance of like what this data looks like, how clean is it, all these things, right? And then we'll start to have discussions of how integrated do you want the system to be? Do you want weekly numbers? Do you want monthly numbers? Do you want quarterly numbers? Tells you how integrated these things need to become.
Yeah.
Right. So then we'll just go through, we'll start to mark all of them off. Right. And then as we start implementation with a customer, it usually takes a quarter or two to get everything moving in the right direction. And once that's all done, what you'll see is you'll have your monthly or quarterly numbers that you want to see. You'll have reports that can be exported directly into the format that's needed, right? An OGMP type format, a SASB type format, a sub RW type format. And stop me if I'm talking gibberish here. And anyway, I'm pretty in the weeds.
You're fine.
Yeah. So that's what you'll be able to start to do. But more importantly, you'll start to be able to see how your operations data and production is performing against this stuff. So we're an extremely visualized platform. You see movements in your data. Oh, something just spiked and it says it's up 70,000%. We should probably look into that. A little QA, QC.
And that's what I was trying to get to, because it's always interesting when we talk to software companies on the podcast, because we're not sitting here looking at the software, right? So I try to get like a visual of like, hey, me as an oil and gas operator, I get all my data flowing into this platform. Like, what am I actually seeing? What can I do with that information? And so you guys obviously sounds like you're a very visual platform. So me as an operator, I can sit here and say, oh, like huge spike, what's going on? And then drill down deeper to actually find out what the problem is.
So on the integrating with like things you mentioned, like P2 or other systems like that, you're not actually pulling in necessarily on anything on the emissions, because I don't know if they're necessarily tracking that there, but you are pulling in production data to layer that over.
Right, because you need all that information.
Yeah.
SCADA systems as well.
Yeah.
You need it comes from a lot of different areas, right? But we'll make sure that they want that first, right? Because we also have to be able to eat spreadsheets, templatize and eat spreadsheets. I've heard it on a previous podcast. I think a few weeks ago, even you guys were talking about how important spreadsheets still are to this world, and that's kind of that's exactly right. So you got to be able to account for that and embrace it, right, and not just act like it's the antithesis of technology. Like it can be really helpful.
Yeah. So where's the company at today? Did you guys ever go raise any capital? Did you just stretch that $10,000 really far? How many people do y'all have? Give us an update on, building the business and where y'all are at.
Absolutely. So real high level, we raised money, early this year.
Nice.
And we closed about $5 million seed round. We're, I would consider one of the most efficient, oil and gas based carbon accounting solutions out there right now. What do I mean by that? I mean, we have a headcount of about 10. And we have about that many operators who are using the platform today, getting their financial information.
We're literally just talking about that walking in, that not using KPI or headcount as a KPI, and being real efficient. So I like
when you use headcount as a KPI,
you focus on the wrong things.
See what happens. You see what's happening with the tech markets right now.
You don't have to theorize about it. I mean, it's happening. So
you get people who raise a lot of money and have infinite headcount, and you try to guess their revenue, and you're shocked when you
they go raise a big round, and the way that they deploy capital is by hiring a lot of people, which has several different bad or negative second order effects. One, your burn goes up, and typically the revenue doesn't match that burn. And then you just get a bunch of average performers in your company as well. And so there's a lot of bad things that come from that. So it's actually really interesting. You guys raised $5 million and you're still at 10 people. That's not the typical growth or deployment of capital. So that's cool to hear.
Absolutely, man.
So you mentioned earlier about the makeup of y'all's company. Obviously, you have some technologists, but then have people that have come from the industry too. Interested about the people that come from the industry, like, and as y'all grow as a company, who are the types of people that y'all hire that come from industry that can help out the platform?
Yeah. So from our side of the table, we say there's two types of people who are really important for us. There are the technologists and world-class engineers who help us build this thing and remain really efficient. And then there are people who are going to add, so that's adding value to the product. Then there are people who are going to add value to our customer. Add value to the customer in terms of they're bringing expertise to the table to help with successful onboardings. People who instill confidence, like when they work with our customer and we're walking them through how we're going to do this and why it's going to work and how we've done it 10 times over. That's an important role. They need to be able to look that person across in the eyes across the table and know that they've actually already done this maybe for the last 10 years. So those are the people who we're looking to bring on, right? And it's not easy because supply is so constrained right now in the industry with that role. Any environmental roles, they can kind of roll around and ask what they want because all of the sustainability world is in growth mode.
100%. Yeah, I mean, it's always tough building enterprise solutions in the first place, but then it's like you have this mix of people that are good technologists and then people that have domain expertise, one internally, but then externally facing, like you were talking about. And so it's always interesting to hear about how founders think about that dynamic and that balance, because you can't go sit across from these companies and just bullshit them, right? They'll know the second that you walk in. So
we've been on so many contracts, man, and we ask, hey, what is it exactly? Or after we close the contract, say, hey, what exactly did you like about us, and what was interesting, and why did you choose us? Essentially, you want that feedback. And time after time after time, it was something along the lines of, I felt like you guys could speak to the system and understood like the problems that we're going through better than anybody else. And that's because I think we hire people who have done software implementation under like the emissions categories for like the last 10 years plus, right? So it's almost becoming like a qualifying factor for like these positions, which is like, have you implemented software in oil and gas? Do you understand emissions? And it's like, if yes, then like apply to Iconic Air, because like this is something that we want to continue with.
With y'all's current clients, you said you have like 10 oil and gas companies that you're working with. Are those upstream, midstream, downstream? Is there, future? Is there like really a bread and butter of what types of oil and gas companies that you work with, or is it kind of all of the above?
Yeah. So the way we keep positioning, the company thesis is energy intensive sectors, right? And we just think that we have a lot of expertise there. Today, it's mainly upstream and midstream.
Okay.
Right. It's probably a little more upstream, but we just have a few midstream as well. And, who knows how fast you need to move into the downstream sector or into utilities. I think those are two very
do you
interesting.
ever see scaling into adjacent verticals, whether it's utilities, renewables, manufacturing, things of that nature? I mean, I'm sure the platform will
farming, maybe
agriculture. Like I'm sure it can be agnostic to a point.
Yeah, that's a great question, right? And the short answer is yes. It's like which ones and which ones first. That's like what I'm thinking about on a week-to-week basis right now, right? It's like, okay, we have 10 people.
It probably changes week to week too.
It's fun though, because there are some hyper adjacent ones, right? Like utilities is a really big market that is very similar, right? Downstream is very similar with a few add-ons. And all of the things that we just named in terms of like, what is our unique value props to those sectors? There's a lot of similarities, right? They want to see the subject matter expertise. They want to know that you guys have been through it. And we still to date have our leak data management solution. So it's kind of interesting because we win a lot of customers that way too. The fact that we can take all of these new technologies that are being developed and evolving right now, pilots on pilots on pilots, right? That's like what we're seeing from, X, Y, Z, Delta, Gamma company that's continuous monitoring, drone, satellite. Like everyone's testing everything, right? So we also leverage and bring in that data and make that useful. So
do you guys still have that drone that you bought?
Just sold it.
Damn.
A few months ago.
We could get it.
A few months ago.
I really want to put a baby on there.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted
That's
to
like
do.
content idea for YouTube.
I was like, I got a 2-year-old. He's a big baby.
Jake and I were on the same page
You know?
there.
Yeah.
I feel like I should have signed a waiver before. I feel like I should have you guys signed a waiver before coming in here. It's like you take the clip of me saying something about it could carry an infant.
Kyle said that we could
You
carry a
got-
baby.
Yeah.
So
Let's
here we are
test it.
testing it out.
Just gotta get cash holding on to it.
Yeah. So no, that's I just missed out. I should have hit you up a couple of months ago.
Do you all ever have companies that come to you that are maybe like they have all these ambitions, but they don't have anything necessarily in place in terms of, they've never used drones before. They're not like detecting anything, right? And if that's the case, then like, what do you do in that situation? Obviously you guys have like some of the solutions that you guys have, but is it like, do y'all work with partners in this kind of ecosystem? Like, walk me through that.
Yeah, I'd say we don't have a lot of the people who come to us or we meet with, they are 1 or 2 steps into the journey,
Mhm.
right? Because a lot of people won't meet with us, and like a reason why some people won't meet with us is because they might say, hey, we're not ready. Like our data is all over the place. We're not sure actually what to do. And I think a lot of times they go to their environmental consultants or someone that they trust just slightly more than like a newer startup company, right? But we also chat with people who are doing it for the first time, and we do have consultants that we work with and environmental partners, right, who instruct people on how to do this. We'll also do a very light version of that, not charging anyone money, just showing them case studies and what combinations of platforms and systems that we've integrated with to date and seen success in. But it's an evolving industry, man. It's an
Yeah.
evolving industry.
Yeah, I was gonna say probably for y'all, it's pretty important to high grade of like where someone is in their process of getting to that point, because there's gonna be some that probably pretty advanced and some that haven't even started. So
Is there anything that's been like surprising to you as you're talking with these 10 companies?
Dude, this whole thing's been surprising to me. Like, think about that.
He's like, I'm surprised.
So like, how does someone who doesn't know, how does myself and my co-founder, James Carnes, a brilliant technologist and just understands the customer better than almost anybody. How do 2 guys coming out of industrial engineering, one who writes software and one who just sits on podcasts and talks, how do we even understand the stuff's a problem? We just talked with hundreds of oil and gas people. Like anyone who'd pick up the phone. We were talking to technicians in the field for forever.
Yeah.
And then eventually we started talking to like VPs, and then we started talking whoever we could get on the phone with. I didn't read about oil and gas in a book. I didn't read about it online. I just asked probably thousands of questions over hundreds of conversations that filled in this information, right? And I would say that is why we were a first mover in the first place in this category. How do 2 guys don't come from oil and gas become a first mover in this carbon accounting world? It's because as COVID's happening and as we're having dozens of Zoom calls every single week, we are hearing what the pain point of the customer is. And to me, that's like the only important thing in the world, right? So when you say what's surprising to you, man, I get on calls still 7, 8, 9 calls a week, whether it's a sales call or whether it's just talking with banks to understand where is everybody at in this wave of maturity.
it's crazy what a little bit of curiosity can do for you, right?
I think we need to like
about this. Huh?
we need to stop and appreciate this because there's a lesson here, right? Because we've talked about this probably a million different times, but there's so many people who fall in love with a widget that they've built, and then they go to a market and they're searching for a problem to solve. And I think what you've absolutely showcased here is that you went out to the market searching for problems, talking to the people, hundreds if not thousands of people who live with these problems every day, saying, how can we help? Right. And that's the proper way to approach that, as opposed to, you've got a widget and you got to raise money on a widget that's looking for a problem. And like that never ends well. Right. But if you're actually tackling and actually giving a shit about what the hell you're doing and looking for these problems to solve, that's hats off to you for doing it that way, because not everybody has like that foresight or maybe even the tenacity to like hit the pavement and make, hundreds if not thousands of calls.
And talking to a lot of people and asking questions, you start putting pieces of the puzzle together.
Yep.
And that's why it's so important to just talk to people. Like I can't like stress. I talk to so many random ass people all the time, just like you talking to you, back in 2020, look, here we are now. Like you just talk to a bunch of people and you start getting different pieces of data and inputs, and then start putting those together. Like, oh, hey, I think there's something here. And, you guys had something, you're like, okay, we're going to go buy this baby carrying drone and we're going to go monitor. But then you started like talking to people and figuring out, hey, like what's the actual problem and real solutions. So that's a pretty good story. And it doesn't surprise me. I mean, you say that this whole thing surprises you. It doesn't surprise me. It's just taking action and asking questions.
And just a quick asterisk because it's funny. We no longer do anything drone related. I just want to put that out there. We're a pure software play, helping people with their carbon accounting and bringing in additional leak data management.
Yeah.
We still have people call us and come up and talk with us from like 3 years ago. Oh, the drone guys. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no.
No, I picked up on that in this podcast. That's why I was asking if y'all still had it, because I was like, I'll buy it off of you.
Yeah. A lot of people in
So-
search of these drones right now, man.
So to be clear, no more drones, pure software play. Where can people find you? Obviously, lots of people who listen to this podcast probably have a need for this type of solution. So what's the website URL?
Absolutely. You can just Google Iconic Air, or there's a chance you're going to find some Air Jordans on there. Sometimes they beat us out in SEO and it pisses me off. But outside of that, you can look at iconicair.io. Iconicair.io.
So visit Iconic Air, scoop you up a pair of Jordans, and then work on
2
your
for 1.
emissions next. So, dude, appreciate you coming on the show. It's been a long time coming, and excited to have you on here, man.
I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah, if y'all enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with a friend, share it on LinkedIn, share it on Twitter, share it on Instagram. That's the only way people find out about this podcast is if you share it. So help us out. Share it with someone. We will catch you next episode.